Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm working in my spiral bound journaling Bible. I am going to be using this beautiful stamp set from Creative Worship Stamps. This was one that was released in October. I don't normally tend to do a lot of Christmas things in October, but they had some really great stamp sets that released this month, and so I am excited to get to use those. And so I'm starting off with this, the First Christmas stamp set. It's a very simple stamp set, and I actually love the simplicity of it. I just think it makes such a good statement. And so I am going to start off by stamping my little stable here, and I'm not all the way down the page. I have come up, a couple inches. This is a very tall Bible, and so I also want to leave room for a sentiment down there. And so I kind of stamped it, a few inches up from the bottom. And I'm sorry for the angle of this. I know that this Bible is hard for me to get all on camera. And then I stamped the little image of the baby Jesus, and then I stamped that onto a sticky note so that I could use it as a mask. So I just cut it out, and then here you can see where I didn't have as much of the sticky as I thought, and so it peeled up. And then I realized I probably should have just not done the leg portion of this, and so I trimmed those off, put that back down, and now I'm going to basically hold it in place while I stencil all the way around. I'm using antique linen for this part, this kind of inside the stable, and that way it just kind of gives the illusion of it being lit in there. And I am going to go just ever so slightly outside the stable, just because they're the point of that, the imagery in my mind, that's just how it should be. And then I will go with this same antique linen all the way down to the bottom. I thought about going darker as I went, but in the end I just stayed with antique linen and went all the way down. And then again, just a little bit of edging around the actual stable itself. And then I'm going to come in and do some more ink blending with blues for the sky all the way up. I'm going to use two. Again, these are Distress Oxide colors. I'm going to start off with Stormy Sky, and I'm starting off with a very light hand here closest to the stable and that light section. And then I'm going to get a little darker with this same color as I move up to the top. And then I'm going to come in with Faded Jeans and work from the top down and have it a little bit darker at the top, working its way lighter down toward the stable. And again, just kind of making sure I don't get like a big blob. The great thing about oxide colors is they just blend really, really well, but they also stay wet. So be sure, like I had my finger there and I had to end up going back and covering that, because the oils from your hand even will leave a little mark sometimes. So sometimes I have to just, remove my hand while I'm doing these ink blending. And then I decided I wanted to do a little bit of blue around the edges and at the very base of the page, which again, I'm sorry, I know you cannot see the base of the page, but it's down there. And I also wanted to add just a little bit of blue over into the text, not a lot, but I didn't want that straight, like stark line. So it just kind of fades over into the text. I could have faded, all the way across, but I just did a little bit. And then I'm pulling in this stencil. This also released this month, and I want to do some texture. I just want a little bit of texture on this page, and I am going to do that with this texture paste. I love texture paste through stencils. It's one of my favorite things to do with them. So I'm just smooshing those same two blue colors onto an acrylic block. I am using the Crafters Workshop Light and Fluffy Modeling Paste. It's one of my favorites to use. And I'm going to start off by just mixing a little bit of that paste into the Stormy Sky color, and then I will do the Faded Jeans, and keeping in mind that this is going to get a little bit lighter because we're mixing the color with white. But that's sort of what I wanted. I wanted kind of the same idea, color on, tone on tone, basically, for my stenciling, but for it to have some texture. So I'm going to kind of blend these colors together even through the stencil. So you can see I'm just mixing this up. I didn't even clean my palette knife before I went into this other color, and then I'm just going to do the same thing all the way up to the top, kind of blending it in. And trying to blend it back down into the bottom. I think in the end I actually ended up covering a little bit too much of the lighter color, but it ended up being okay. And then I wanted the stenciling to come down the page just a little bit further. So I repositioned my stencil, and then I'm trying to get sort of a blended look with this stencil, but then I moved the stencil. And so then I like tried to scrape off that one little section that I had already done. And yeah, so I end up coming in later with my finger and just kind of blending this down a little bit, almost distressing the edge of it. I didn't want there to just be like a hard edge to the end of the stenciling. So that's what I'm doing here with my palette knife. And then I added a little bit of texture paste to the back side of my palette knife, and I'm just going through, and with my palette knife flat, I'm just pouncing up and down like you would with a stencil sometimes, like stippling, so that I have a little bit more texture in this texture paste. It was very smooth, which was very nice, but I just wanted a little bit more texture. And then I'm coming in with a gold embossing powder. This is while the texture paste is still wet. And I had a little glob of it there on that where I got a little overzealous. I realize you can't see anything but my hand here, so sorry about that, but I had that little blob over there on the right. It's okay. I'm going to try to fix it a little bit, but this is into wet texture paste, and so I don't want to mess up the stenciling. So I'm just going in with a very soft paintbrush, trying to move some of that embossing powder around. And this is a gold embossing powder. It's really hard to tell that on camera, but it is a lovely gold color. And so, but one of the things I am also going to do is add just a little bit of texture down here at the bottom of my page. Right now I'm letting my texture paste dry a little bit before I hit it with my heat tool. So I'm just adding this. This is just some not bleached cheesecloth, and I spread it out there down at the bottom. I'm going to add a little sentiment over the top of that down there, but I just wanted that to have something, just more texture really is what it is. And then I'm coming in now to melt this embossing powder, and it takes a minute. I don't know why this embossing powder it just takes a minute, but one of the things you'll see here as I am doing this, as the texture paste itself is going to start bubbling up, and I actually like that look, so that I knew that that was going to do that when I did this. If you don't like that and you really want your texture paste to be nice and smooth, wait until your texture paste is completely dry before you do this step, because if you hit your heat tool, try to heat this embossing powder over texture paste that isn't completely dry, you're going to get these bubbles. Again, I like that to extra, added texture that it gives, but I know that that's not for everybody. So just make sure it dries for a while. And then I wanted to repeat that same stenciling all the way down the page. And so what I'm going to do now is use a baby wipe, and I'm going to come in and try and pull up some of this antique linen. And I forgot about this journaling Bible, that the pages, if they get wet or too wet, the paper tends to pill up a little bit. So I'm trying to combat that by just laying the baby wipe just right over the stencil and pressing it in, and I still am able to pull up some of the color, but I didn't want to keep rubbing it because it was already starting to pill the paper, and I did not realize, I just wasn't thinking that it was doing the same thing to the little baby Jesus image. So when I came in directly after this, while this page is almost, still damp, I came in with my Tombow markers, and by the time I came through with the blender brush to blend out those marker lines, it was really starting to pill the paper, and I didn't want to end up with damaging the page itself. So I ended up just leaving it very, very simple with the coloring, which is totally fine. But I would have been better off to heat it before I started coloring. I guess in my mind, I think I still had the little mask over him, and so I just assumed that he was still dry, but it's okay. And now you can see, now I'm heating it and drying this page before I go on to stamp the final little touches here. I'm going to keep this page super simple, but I wanted to add the little star at the top, and so I'm pulling out my VersaFine ink, or my Versamark ink. This is just a clear ink pad that's meant for embossing, and stamping the star right at the peak of that, so it's not quite into the texture paste, which worked out. And then I'm using that same gold embossing powder, and you'll be able to see it has a little bit of a brighter color when you can see it this way. And then I want to stamp now basically my sentiments for this page. Oh, actually, no, sorry. I'm coming in with this is acrylic paint. This is by Folk Art, and it is, let me see if I can find it. It's called Glam Gold. It's a beautiful gold acrylic paint. And what I love about it is when you water it down so that to do this splattering, it still stays that beautiful metallic. And so I wanted to add this layer so that it would get some of that metallic down in between the stenciled areas as well. And then just, and splatters just make everything better. So now I'm just pulling out a couple of the sentiment pieces from this stamp set. The top one says love came down, and then I used the other one that said a humble manger, and I wanted it to say in a humble manger. And so I just hand wrote that. I tried to copy her handwriting as best as I could. There is another stamp in the stamp set that says away in a manger, but I wanted it to say love came down in a humble manger specifically. And then there's a C.S. Lewis quote as well that's included in the stamp set. And I wanted to include that as well. So I'm just going to stamp this on some cream colored cardstock. I didn't want to do anything that was like brown or, just really contrasting. I wanted it to kind of just blend in down at the edge of the page. I tore that out, added some archival ink and ground espresso around the edge of it, and then I'm going to pop this up with some foam adhesive just because I'm dealing with all of that, the texture that's already there, and just to pull it up off of the page. And that's basically going to be it for this page for me. So if you liked this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. My affiliate link for Creative Worship Stamps will be down in the description if you're interested in that, as well as my links for my website and my Facebook group. I'd really love to have you join my Facebook group if you haven't already. Anyway, all those links will be down in the description. And until next time, bye.